Welcome back to Chapter. Today we'll be going over Part 1, Chapter 7 of George Orwell's 1984. Any hope for a different future, according to Winston, lies with the proles. The party has too tight a grip on its own members, and therefore cannot be destroyed from within. The proles make up 85% of the population of Oceania, but they haven't once tried to make a seize for power. Why is that? One word: oppression. The proles live under the false pretense of freedom when they're actually completely and utterly subjugated by their so-called liberators. But Winston distinctly remembers conditions being better before the party rose to power. The power of doublethink and the manipulation of history keeps the proles content in their own slavery. Until they become conscious, they will never rebel, and until after they have rebelled, they cannot become conscious. In modern speak, they aren't woke, so they don't protest, and it's only until they are woke that they can protest. So it's this impossible catch-22 sort of situation where they lack the knowledge to do the thing, and only until they get the knowledge can they do the thing, but they're unable to attain the knowledge to do the thing, so they cannot do the thing because they cannot obtain the knowledge to do the thing, and they cannot do. The proles are not deemed dangerous enough for full party indoctrination, and rather they're kept in line by the simple idea of patriotism. Sound familiar? They're also subjugated through the use of malicious rumors and use of the media to kind of tell people, oh, there's scary people around every corner. Topical things. Proles are seen as less than party members, less than human, and are thusly not held to the same standards as party members. Proles and animals are free, meaning freedom is seen as something primitive and beneath members of the party, and also something negative, because animals and proles are stupid. Winston goes on to write a passage about capitalism from a textbook from his childhood. It depicts the dangers of capitalism, showing capitalists as ugly, fat men with wicked faces, wearing these long black overcoats and black top hats, much like the millionaire, billionaire, businessman model of political cartoons in the early 1900s, a la the Monopoly Man. This textbook is not an entirely accurate portrayal of capitalism as we know it in 2016, but rather a hyperbole of its pitfalls. Now, there's a passage in this chapter that talks about how capitalists would be able to have sexual relations with anyone that they wanted to, whether this was someone else's wife, someone's like new bride, someone's whoever's lady, because women are property. And the word that they give is jus prime noctis, which is called the right of the first night. And let me give you a tiny bit of a history lesson here. It is a ridiculously old law where local noblemen, and not always businessmen like the book says, these men reserve the right to deflower peasant brides before their husbands got to, because, I don't know, people are dicks. People are dicks could fall under a theme of this book. So, theme of 1984, people are dicks. Don't put that in your paper. Winston goes on to muse over the disparity between party promises and party deliveries. The party's pitch was this strong, industrial, hive mind community with a killer military power and unyielding workforce, very indicative of what the communists wanted back in the time that this book was written, so think communist Russia in the 50s. Here's what the people got. Fallout 3. Next, Winston reflects on the time he caught the party in a lie. And it was in the late 1960s. As dictatorships go, the original leaders of the revolution were arrested. Shocker, I know. Winston sees these men at a coffee shop before their arrest, which is strange seeing leaders of a revolution at a coffee shop, but I guess there's Starbucks in this time period. Totally random. But a very telling song is played, and Rutherford, one of the leaders, begins to weep. Later on, Winston acquires a photo that proves the innocence of these leaders, but he chooses to destroy it. But the fact that he destroyed it doesn't matter. He's always had proof that the party lies and changes history. He literally works in a building where they change history to match what they said they were gonna do. Like, his job is to literally, like, correct the past into what is happening in the future, so everything seems to be going according to plan. Like, he is constantly involved and steeped in the party's lies, but is just now becoming aware of what he's doing. And that's what's different this time around. Winston is becoming woke. He laments destroying that photo, saying it could have blown the party to atoms, but we all know how that would have gone over. This is a dystopian novel. This ain't no Hunger Games nonsense. This is a true dystopian novel. I understand how. I do not understand why. Winston understands the mechanism of how the past is altered and changed and constantly done so, but he does not understand why it happens. He doesn't understand why people are complacent in this, or why it could be happening in the first place. He believes in the concrete, the incorruptible truth of the past, that once something has happened, it cannot be changed, and he feels like a lunatic for believing this, because the party has it so ingrained in people that the past can be changed. It is not written in stone as it truly is in a certain perspective, but it is what the party says it is. The past is what the party says it is. Winston describes what it feels like to look upon Big Brother, and I feel it's important enough to read directly. For me, it is on page 80, if you would like to follow along. It is in the second paragraph underneath the I understand how, I do not understand why. Like 2 sentences in. It was as though some huge force were pressing down upon you, something that penetrated inside your skull, battering against your brain, frightening you out of your beliefs, persuading you, almost, to deny the evidence of your own senses. In the end, the party would announce that 2 and 2 made 5, and you would have to believe it. Winston answers his own question. This is why the party is succeeding in rewriting the past. Because the party can make you believe that 2 and 2 makes 5, when you know with all of your heart and all of your soul that 2 and 2 makes 4. The diary, Winston decides, is being written as a sort of intellectual love letter to O'Brien. And in it, as Winston is rejecting the party's ideals, is becoming somewhat of a free thinker. The truth is not what the party says. The truth is what reality says. He concludes his entry with his, in my opinion, the beginnings of his manifesto. If you are allowed to believe in the concrete, the inalienable, then all else will follow. So on to the themes and symbolism and such, which is probably what you're actually here for if you're actually reading the book. And if you're not reading the book, I hope that first part was helpful for you. So again, a common theme in this is the dangers of totalitarianism and oppression, the story of the proles, the biased depiction of opposing political ideologies, the feeling that Big Brother imbues in Winston, the story of Rutherford and the other leaders of the original rebellion, torture of the innocent. All bad things when you have a government that rules with an iron sledgehammer. And the symbol that pops up again in this chapter is Winston's varicose ulcer. I know I talked about this in a previous video, but this chapter expands upon it slightly. Has anyone else known how selectively it acts up? You'd think having varicose ulcers would be painful all the time, but Winston only chooses to address it when he's having these rebellious thoughts and when he's close to an epiphany. The scratching of his ulcer is Winston's grating need to uncover the truth of the past in general, and what freedom truly means and becoming his own person. Thank you so much for watching. This has been George Orwell's 1984 Part 1, Chapter 7. At the end of this series, I will be making a video that is sort of a bonus that strictly goes over the modern day connections I can't help but make while rereading this book for the umpteenth millionth time. So if that is something you want to see or would be helpful for you, look for that at the end of the series. like after I do the rest of part 1, part 2, and part 3. I think there's only 3 parts. Maybe there's 4. I don't know. I haven't finished reading the book yet. But it will draw a lot on the current political situation in the United States and touch upon various social issues affecting not only the United States but the world as a whole. So if that's something that will interest you, let me know in the comments to give me some motivation to keep banging out these videos in my very limited spare time. So thank you again for watching, and I'll see you for the next chapter.